Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, let's dig in, everyone. We appreciate your time, and we're going to be so respectful of your time and ensure that we end today at the appropriate time as well. So I'm going to keep my eye on the clock, and we have Cassidy keeping her eye on the clock as well. But we wanted to convey some very important information about the education residency model or term. And so we're going to cover these topics today. We're going to talk a little bit about what is term, make sure that you're very well versed on sort of some of the requirements for the residents, talk about what it means to be a mentor teacher for term. We have a job description for all of you, and we're going to make sure that you have that information. The term residents will receive a workbook. Well, they have received a workbook in progress, and it lays out all the expectations. So they're going to run up against questions all year long. And so we want you to know that we've put together this workbook to help sort of answer a lot of those questions. And we want you to have access to it too. We're going to do a very sort of 3-5 minute activity to make sure that we have a really good solid start with the residents as well, and talk about the support that you all have all year. And then we're going to talk about those 7 action items to get us started for the year. So again, thank you all. You all have been identified by your districts as being master educators. It's important as we look at the teacher shortage around the state and around the nation that we find a way to do something innovative when it comes to teacher preparation. And I'm hoping that everybody on this call realizes that what we do in teacher preparation is pretty good. But the research is showing that by year 3, 30% are gone. By year 5, 50% are gone. So what can we do a little bit different so that our residents, our future teachers feel, confident in the work that they do, so that they don't leave by year 3, they don't leave by year 5. And this is why we're faced with a shortage. Maybe if we did things a little bit differently and we protected that space, we gave them a year long to practice, and we gave them the best and brightest teachers to learn alongside, then we can do something to stem this attrition that we find ourselves faced with. So thank you for believing in the journey. So let's get after it. Let's have a little discussion here today about getting prepared. First thing I want you all to understand about term is that it's a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of entities that are involved in this sort of term idea. If you look at this Venn diagram, at the top is school districts. We are going into a relationship, a partnership with the school districts. And these are districts that are saying, yes, we will support your residents. We'll give them the training ground. We'll support their placement. And not only are you giving them a space alongside a master teacher, but you are helping to protect that time as well. And we all know that the more time you have to really focus, right, on your work, the more efficacious one will feel. The other important entity are the 2 educator preparation programs. So at Texas A&M, we have a non-traditional teacher prep program. It's a post-bac program where students go to, once you have your degree in another area, you go to get an additional master's degree as well as teacher certification. So all of you on this call, you're getting not just folks who have a bachelor's degree, they're working on an education master's degree as well. We at Texas A&M, I am the principal investigator, the grant writer. We have gone to DOE, we got this large grant, and that's how these students are being supported in terms of their stipend. And so we provide the funding, and we also provide all of the administrative support. So you've had that support ongoing from our friend Cassidy, our program manager, and now we're delighted to welcome on board Dr. Marla Ramirez as the associate director. So we're here to give you all that support that you need. And then finally at Texas A&M, we are happy that we are offering professional development support as well. We have to be engaged in the development of our residents, but not just our residents. We want to make sure we give support to the mentors. So if you come along on this journey with us, we'll make sure that we offer opportunities for you to learn about the art of co-teaching. So for you to learn about the art of being a mentor teacher, because as we all know, being a great teacher is not the same thing as being a great mentor, right? There is a different skill set. And so we're providing professional development from some of the best folks that we can sort of around together. So we're going to offer that to all of you all year as well. And then at Prairie View, our partners there, they are working with us as well. They also have a master's program. They call it Alternative Cert, but it's also a post-bac program. And they offer the master's program along with teacher certification. So it's all three of these entities, right, from around the state of Texas that said, yes, I believe in this vision. What we all have in common, even though our work is different, is that we believe in pouring into the next generation of teachers, and not just in words, but in deed, giving them that support, financial, professional, whatever it takes so that they can be successful. Next slide, please, Cassidy. So in terms of the definition of a residency, it is a district-driven educator preparation program. So not only are the folks back at the universities, the faculty members and staff involved, but it's districts being at the table as well. People like points of contact, site supervisors, instructional coaches, mentors, everybody committing to this partnership. We also want to make sure that we prepare future teachers for some critical things, right? Preparing for those culturally diverse classrooms. We got babies in our classroom who speak a different language, or who come from underserved communities, or who come from an ethnic background that is often sort of clawing for its space and its voice. We need to make sure that tomorrow's teachers can teach any kind of baby that pops up in their room, whether it's a rich kid on one side of the town or the poor kid on the other side of the town. Our residents need to be ready to meet that diversity that comes into their room. We also want to prepare these future teachers and give them comprehensive support. That means giving them support to pass their certification exams. We're giving them stipends. They're all earning $2,000 less than what the first year teachers are earning in your districts, and that comes from the grant as well. We also want to make sure that we have authentic collaboration. So we can't say we got their back. We got to show up for them, and you guys are proving that today. I'm so impressed by everyone saying yes and always showing up when we say we're going to have these meetings and put our heads down and do this great work. We want to also build teacher supports with comprehensive induction training. So these students, these residents, they're going to have something called Term Fridays. So during the fall semester, they're going to be in your classes from Monday through Thursday, but on Friday, they're meeting with us. They're getting prepped for certification exams, and we're giving them additional professional development. So by the time that year is over, they're going to have earned over 100 hours of professional development training. And then we also want to make sure that the residents, if they're going to stay in your community, they need to feel a sense of belonging. So we want to make sure that we connect them with the local community. So not only will they have a classroom mentor, but the residents will also have a community mentor, the heroes and sheroes of your community that understand how the community works, so that the residents learn how to respect the families as well as the students in the community. And when residents feel that sense of belonging, the research says that they're more likely to stay and remain in the district. I'm going to turn off my camera. I see there's a lag here. And then funding provided by the funding from U.S. Department of Education. We've received a $13 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education. This is a 5-year grant, and we're only in year and a half. So we got 3.5 more years to go, everyone. And we're not looking to do this and be done in 5 years. We're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work so that this program can be sustainable long after the money is gone. So that's why we're showing up, collaborating, talking about continuous improvement, what works and what doesn't work. All right, next slide, please. So there are some requirements for the residents. They, in order to be a resident in our program, they have to be a recent graduate of a 4-year institution of higher education. We also are looking for those mid-year mid-career professionals outside of the field of education. We want folks who have degrees, maybe non-education degrees. Sometimes those are the folks who have that expertise in their subject area. So those are great folks for us to target. But you know what? The other sort of group we're looking for as well are the paraprofessionals. You all have a lot of paraprofessionals in your districts who have degrees or nearly finished with their degrees. I'm very happy to share with you all that we have, Cassidy, how many paraprofessionals do we have this year out of our cohort of 19?
We have 2 right now.
2. And this is our first year working with paraprofessionals. We're looking to grow that number. As an aside, we're going to start recruitment for cohort 3 in the next 6 weeks. And we're also having a conversation on September 8th about how we can start sort of really sort of pinpointing and identifying that group. So we're excited. And this is cohort number 2. And they have to be enrolled in that master's program for education and get their certification. So that's really important. So that's where the educator preparation programs at Texas A&M and Prairie View come into play. They have to be hired as a teacher resident on your campuses. And here's the great news. They all sign what's called an intent to serve with us before we release any monies, before we get them signed up at your district. And what they're committing to is a year long of training and then coming back to serve in your district for a minimum of 3 years as the teacher of record. So that's really, really important to know. So, often these residents come in 1 year and then they're gone. These residents have committed to staying around. So that's the great news. Next slide. All right, so being a term mentor is really about being a great guide and a confidant, a friend. We strive to make sure that every resident is paired with a mentor. That one-to-one pairing is very, very important. We also know that you have agreed to host the resident in your classroom for 1 full academic year, not 1 semester, the entire year. So that bonding experience, right, is bound to happen if you're going to be side by side with that resident for a whole year. What we want to have happen as well, so that we can make sure that the candidate gets that feedback that they deserve. We know that informal meetings happen all the time. So we're hoping that you will have those informal weekly meetings during the fall. We're hoping that you will have those informal bi-weekly meetings by the time we move around to spring. But one thing that we definitely need to have happen is for the resident to get that sit down, face-to-face formal feedback from you. And we're hoping that we can do that once a month. Now, we've developed a kind of training protocol on how that will look and how that will work. And I'm going to talk about that in a couple of slides from now. So part of you engaging with your resident involves that informal as well as that formal interaction. We're hoping that that all of you will participate in all of the professional development that we have in store. And so there is an opportunity for you all to become a certified mentor as well. We know that will go a long way for your resumes and your CVs. You will receive a stipend from us. We will send those stipends to your districts and they will disperse those stipends to you based on their own timetable. Last year, could you sort of engage your mic, Mrs. Gross, and let everyone know when you all sort of released your stipends to the mentors? Was it December or May or half and half?
We did half and half.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So it's really up to the district when they will release those stipends. Cassidy, did we want to just open up the job description? Can you tell everyone how they can access that at least?
Yes, you can scan this QR code here with your phone. I've also dropped a link in the chat. the site coordinators and our points of contact, they have a copy of this as well. So we can get that out to you if you are not able to access it either one of these ways.
Okay. And everyone on this call, you will get that follow-up email with those action items and links to these documents. But what you're going to find is a lot of this information that we have here on the screen. In addition to the stipend, the requirement that we need back from you all will be 2 surveys, one in the fall and one in the spring, to help us understand, how things are working out with your resident. And then we would like to have what we call sort of an interview or focus group, bring the mentors together, hear from you all about what worked, what did not work. I believe that our researcher at Texas A&M had some one-on-one with folks, or it may be one-on-one, or it may be an opportunity to bring everyone together. That is the obligation is with us. There are no meetings that we're going to have with you all. We do have something called monthly implementation meetings with our points of contact. These are not meetings that you are required to attend. There are 0 meetings through the year. I just want to make that clear with the mentors. But you are welcome to attend those implementation meetings. You're highly encouraged, but they are not required. Okay. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so talking about some of those characteristics of an effective mentor, I assume that you all have been identified because you have these characteristics, and maybe these are things that are going to be honed over time, right? So the idea of respect, the idea of being a great listener, challenging, and even though you're going to be a confidant and a friend to your resident, it's important to push. And as you know them and get to know them a little bit more and more over time, you'll know how to do that gentle push and be that critical friend that the resident needs. A good mentor is a great collaborator. They know how to celebrate with the resident when good things happen. They know how to give just the right sort of recognition that is required. They tell the truth. They don't sugarcoat anything. If something's not happening just the right way, they know how to tell the truth and deliver that information in a way that's going to be received. They operate along the lines of being ethical and being safe. And above all else, they have empathy because they remember what it's like to be that first year teacher. I don't know about all of you, but I didn't have a good mentor teacher when I was a new teacher. I was a science teacher, and my person that was assigned to me, she would give all her students some words to look up in a glossary, and then she would go sit outside and do crocheting. That was my example of a mentor teacher, and I had to go look for my own. The beauty of this residency is that we have worked with the districts and leaned on them to identify the best and brightest, and you all have been identified to do that work. So we need you. We need you to be that guide, that friend, that collaborator, and help this resident grow throughout the year. Next slide, please. So expectations for the residents, you should know a little bit about their schedule. This is super important. In the fall, so that's now until they leave for the winter holiday, they'll be in the schools Monday through Thursday. We're hoping that they do a little bit more in terms of observing and assisting all of you. Their teaching should be limited, but let me just say this as a caveat, that there may be these superstars and maybe you feel like they're ready to take on a little bit more teaching, right? So, we will leave that to you all if you think that your students, your residents are ready. We're going to talk about a proposed pacing schedule next, so we'll talk about that. They should attend all staff meetings. They are, and let me just say this, they are your co-teacher. And it's important that you sort of, refer to them as such, not as student teachers, but as your co-teacher. One of the things I liked that one of the mentors did, I think it was year before last, this mentor teacher took the time to have the nameplate of her resident engraved, and she put it outside her door next, so that when the students came in, the students understood it wasn't just their teacher and a student in the classroom, but that they had two teachers. And that was pretty profound. And you can imagine the impact on the little ones, but the impact on the resident is like, I'm here, I belong here, I'm a partner to my mentor teacher. So whatever you all can do to make that resident feel as if they are equally important to your classroom space is highly encouraged. They should attend all staff meetings, campus events, professional development by your district. And it's important that you know, as I said before, that Fridays are reserved for their professional development with us. So they will not be on campus in the fall, but they need to be there Monday through Thursday in the fall. Now, in the spring, that changes. They're there every day. And in the spring, they're going to have more formal observations by the university supervisor. There's going to be more, hopefully, in the way of co-teaching and full responsibility. And that continued attendance for campus events continues as well. The QR code there is a QR code to their workbook. And please take a look at that at your leisure. All right. Okay, a little bit about the co-teaching pacing schedule. So in terms of how the year should progress and the level of autonomy that the residents have, we're hoping that from now through the end of September, that you allow them to do a lot of the observing, assisting, and co-planning. They really should be somewhat of a fly on the wall, so to speak. Really sort of taking it all in. It can be overwhelming when it's your first time in a classroom space. Allow them to work out the angst, and giving them more of that assisting role will help them in that regard. In October through November, push them along to do more of the small group and more co-planning, some co-teaching for 1 or 2 class periods. That you should also know that we are going to be encouraging our instructional coaches to do some walkthroughs, just real quick, come on through, see how they're doing. It's during this time as well, from October through December, that the students will also be involved in what's called rotations. So that's where we want them to go and see other master teachers in your building or on your campus. Maybe they are observing a particular concept, or maybe they're observing transitions, whatever it is. We want those residents to have an opportunity to see all kinds of master teachers at work. So those rotations will happen October through late December. Cassidy, let me pause here. I'm wondering if there were any questions in the chat that I missed.
We have a question right now from Ms. Bayless about should they be required to attend scheduled Saturday meetings? Ms. Bayless, are those meetings for your campus or the district?
They are.
Okay.
We have a couple that are scheduled.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Jill Jackson, correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, they should be there. But some of our students have classes on Saturday, so that could conflict with those meetings. And in that case, we would ask them to go to their class.
And if that's the case, they should provide documentation to such.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Good question. Did we miss any other questions?
I'm not seeing any others, but if we want to pause and if anybody has a question and would like to unmute themselves and ask now, we can take a moment.
Could we go into more details about the instructional coach, some of the things that we have on the pacing schedule, the co-teaching and pacing for the instructional coach, so the mentors will know what the instructional coach is coming in to do or to observe?
Right. So we have like a very quick sort of 10-item checklist. It's just a little sort of Qualtrics survey. So you can imagine that an instructional coach would just come in with that survey on their phone and look for those areas of competencies very quick. Now, we're going to have a separate meeting with the instructional coaches to talk about what those walkthroughs are, but we love to have 2 or 3 a semester no more than 3 to 5 minutes, come in to see what's happening. It's another way for our candidates to have some feedback on what's going on for us as well. We haven't done it before. We had it on our books last year to do, but we didn't implement it with fidelity. So this year we will be doing that, and it's going to be very quick. And if you don't mind, I'd love to reserve that meeting to have that discussion about the walkthroughs. All right, thank you. All right. And so everyone, I'm going to go on now and talk about December and January. As you all can see, that level of independence is growing. So now we're seeing that by December, January, the students are kind of co-teaching 1 to 2 classes, they're co-planning, and they're alternating with the other milestones as well. By February to March, they should be hitting their stride. They should be doing some independent work, independent planning, independently teaching 3 to 4 classes as well. And then somewhere around April to May, they're in full responsibility. Now, this is a general pacing schedule. I can imagine that there may be some of the residents who may be ready come December for full responsibilities. Others maybe not until February, March. Can you make adjustments and make those calls on your own? Absolutely. It's important that you are in tune and in touch with, where your resident is in terms of their own confidence. And we're going to leave it to you. But we wanted you all to have somewhat of a guide as you progress throughout the year. Okay.
I'd like to add, Dr. Hill-Jackson, that there will be that university supervisor that's coming in to do the formal observations for the TEA certification requirements, and they may have a more specific schedule that they would like the residents to follow. So this is our suggested pacing schedule for the entire residency year, but you may see different information that will be provided by them directly to you. And they'll also be in communication with you and reflecting on how the resident is doing and making adjustments as needed.
Appreciate that, Cassidy. That's exactly right. And often the university supervisors are used to residents, or I should say candidates, being in the field for 1 semester. So the information they have is based on that resident, that candidate being in the field for a limited time. And so often they're not sort of aware that that candidate has been in that classroom since August. And so they will be advanced and they can do things probably ahead of the suggested schedule that the university supervisors may have. So we've taken the liberty to sort of give you all a general idea of how to progress. But again, the progression for the resident is based on how you feel that they're progressing and how confident that resident may be to take on new challenges. So it's always about conversations, giving that resident the feedback that he or she needs so that they can progress over time. All right, we're going to move on, Ms. Cassidy. All right, so when it comes to the responsibilities, again, as I said, there are no mandatory meetings all year. Your meetings are with your residents in your classrooms. However, there are 2 trainings that we want to make you all aware of. One is mandatory and one is optional. So I want to talk about the performance management plan. We have developed an online training for the mentors. It is at your own pace. It is free. And what this training will do is sort of explain how to engage with the resident and give them meaningful feedback all year long. Now, everybody who's a mentor on this call, you're familiar with TTES. You know how high stakes that can be. You know how it is summative in nature, right? And you're not getting that feedback all year long that you sort of, to help you grow. Well, we don't want to do that to our residents. We want them to constantly, at once a month, have those formal meetings with you and really talk about ways that they can improve. And that begins with this 8-step process. And you're going to learn about this 8-step process in the professional learning that we've created for you. And that first step is having that first mentoring session that's intentional, where you get to know your resident and they get to know you. And then that second step is setting goals. And then every month you're having an intentional sit down, protected conversation so that that resident can get really good feedback. And so I suspect that you all could finish this training in 2 hours. For those who are ambitious, we're given, I think ideally for the average person, it could be maybe up to 5 hours. But we know that we all are responsible for a certain number of professional learning hours every year. And so once you finish this online training, you can start it one day and then pick it up another day. But we want you to know how to engage with that resident, and we want you to complete this training by October 1st. Now, the other training that we have that is optional, but I really highly recommend it, is the Models of Co-Teaching Professional Development. This is 2 hours of professional learning. It's also free. Once you complete both of these PD experiences, at the end, the computer automatically sort of gives you a code so you can spit out your certificate of completion. So we wanted to be respectful of your time, and that's why this on-demand, these 2 on-demand opportunities are here for you. What Cassidy will do is in a follow-up email, I think we're going to release the instructions for how to log on to our platform to engage in the professional development, probably a week from today. You all will get instructions so that you can get started on your own. I'm going to pause here to see if there's anything that Cassidy wants to add.
The models of co-teaching, Dr. Hill-Jackson, that one is being finalized as well, right? So that one may come out a little bit later than the PMP. The communications next week that you'll receive in the instructions will be specifically for PMP, and then we'll get out the models of co-teaching to you.
That's exactly right. Thank you. All right. Next
And
slide.
one more thing I'll say too is that once the training is complete, you should be able to go back and access this information throughout the year. So if there's a certain step in the process that you would like to go back and review, that'll be available to you. But your residents also will have access to very similar information, so they can refer to their resources as well. Okay.
Thank you, Cassidy. And this platform is available through Texas A&M, and the name of this professional development opportunity is called Term Classroom. So we're very happy to be offering that this year to our residents as well as our mentor teachers. Lots of PD opportunities will be available for all of you. The only one that is mandatory is the PMP. All right, okay. So lots of great information online, you all, about some strategies for easing the anxieties of our new teachers. And so what we're going to be doing all year, because we won't have any formal meetings, we'll just keep you all updated in with newsletters and give you some tips for, encouraging and engaging your resident. We don't want to impose on any of your time. So that's why we're not going to have any meetings all year. You're welcome to join our implementation meetings, but we're not going to have any meetings. So look out for those great tips in our newsletters that are going to start in September. One of the articles that I was just reading about online talks about, this sort of start of the new year and things that mentors need to be thinking about, right, as you start engaging new teachers. Number one, provide more setup time at the start of the year. Number two, structure more time with the mentors. So that informal engagement as well as that formal engagement is super important. And evaluations give novices time to grow. So that's what our PMP is all about. Can't wait for you all to get engaged in that online professional development. And then offer networking time as well. They're going to get to know you. But it's important that to get to know the school and campus community as well. Look for ways to include those new babies, those new baby teachers into the entire school culture. Next slide, please. All right, so we don't have time for a breakout room, but I wanted to maybe one or two persons to share a little bit about how you were able to have that first session with your resident this year. Because I know we kind of talked to our residents on the fly and informally, but if there's anyone on the call that had kind of a sit down, formal first session experience with your resident, can you engage your mic and tell us a little bit about that and how that went?
Okay, looks like it's me. When Mr. Whitcomb came to my room, he had been in another room with another teacher, so I didn't immediately know anything about him or how he operates in the classroom. But when he did come in, class was just starting, and we had new students come in, and very shortly after class started, we had a student that had an emotional outburst, and Mr. Whitcomb immediately went to that student and took control. It was a male student. Got him to come outside with him, had a powwow, and brought him back much more settled down and in control of himself. And once the student went off to lunch, we were able to sit down and break down what had happened, what triggered the student. And he gave me a little background of what the student told him, and a way that he was able to get over with the student and have the student trust him to speak with him. And I was impressed. I was impressed. I am grateful, and every day that he has been in here, he is the first one to respond to students that are out of order. So you're gonna get a teacher that has behavior down pat.
He sounds like he's naturally talented that way.
Yes.
He is, trust
That's
me,
a
he's
great
a natural.
example. Great example of getting to know a student, right? And what they're capable of doing, even though he's a novice. It sounds like he knew what to do in terms of working alongside a student. It's also a great example of how that time that was supposed to be between you and he was interrupted, right? You're just getting to know him, and yet there's this school incident that needs attention. You can't get around that. What we're hoping to do is that you all find time where there are no distractions, no interruptions, and it's intentional time where you can get to know who your resident is. Maybe have a set of questions ready, maybe to have a little game or activity, maybe just let's have some coffee. But it needs to be intentional so that that first mentoring session is formalized and they get to know you and you get to know them. Just number 6, couple of things to keep in mind when you're having that first formal session is to set aside that intentional time. Make sure it's a friendly environment and it's not going to be interrupted. And then also personalize that first meeting, but not make it personal, right? So that you don't, there's a fine line between sharing about yourself and then sharing too much, right? I can share that I'm married, but I don't need to tell my students that I had a fight with my husband the night before, right? So we have to negotiate, those spaces. But I just wanted to encourage you all over the next week or two to make sure you build in that just one-on-one is just us. Distractions are away from us, and that you can really engage and get to know your resident. All right, we're going to move on to the next slide, please. Some things to know when it comes to support and where to go. Now, we've had this conversation with the residents because there are these 3 big players involved in this partnership. it can be confusing, and we want you all to know, and this is in our workbook for the students. So when it comes to all things dealing with the PMP and term calendar and surveys, term Fridays, absences, come to us, okay? Anything dealing with certification and coursework, those things go to the University Ed Prep program. So it's important you all know where to go and where to send students. And when it comes to things like background checks, their contracts, paychecks, lesson plans, school calendars, and those kinds of things, those are district sort of questions and concerns as well. The one topic that all three entities have in common is the issue of absences. We've already explained to the residents today that when it comes to absences, they have sort of a three-step process. They tell their mentor, teacher, and principal, they contact their graduate program at the university, and then they contact us at term, Dr. Ramirez, Cassidy, or myself. So we all need to know if these students are showing up, and they need to be on your campuses Monday through Thursday in the fall, Monday through Friday in the spring. All right, next slide, please. So here we are almost at 5 o'clock, and we just got 2 more slides. Thank you for bearing with us, everybody. Also want you to know when it comes to any questions you may have, your first line of support is your point of contact for your district. And you see the names there and the chart to your right. Look out for those frequent communications from us. We don't want to overrun your mailbox, but as we get started, you'll probably hear from us a little bit. And then starting in September, we'll probably send bi-weekly newsletters. So look out for those communications as well. And then of course, we're happy to support you. You guys deserve $1 million a year, but we can't afford to pay that. We just have a small token of our appreciation, which is $2,000 paid by term, and that money comes to you from your district. All right, next slide, please. And this is our last slide, everybody. Our action items. There are 7 action items. So if you didn't get it all, please remember that we've recorded this presentation, and then we're going to get follow-up instructions by Ms. Cassidy. So make sure you read and review your job description. And so once you get into the and get your invite for the PMP, there'll be instructions for you to sign off on that job description, that you understand what's being asked of you, and you'll be asked to upload a copy to that site. So instructions forthcoming. Elevate your mentee or your resident. Number 2, make sure that your babies in your classroom understand this is not a student teacher, this is your co-teacher. And that will help in terms of the respect that the students will pay to that resident, but also in that sense of confidence and belonging that the resident will feel for being in your classroom. Number 3, review the workbook, the one that was created for the residents. You don't have to memorize anything, but know that it exists. Know that when it comes to certain questions, the residents do have a resource as well, and you have a resource. Number 4, plan and execute a formal said formal twice, mentoring session. Have that sit down, carve out that special time to sit with your resident so that they can start bonding with you, so that you can become that true confidant. Number 5, complete your term classroom training. PMP certification training is required by October 1st. Co-teaching is encouraged. And since you all are going to be co-teachers, I can't imagine anybody saying no to free PD. And we hope you take us up on that. And number 6, guys, enjoy it. This is a gift experience. You're giving back and you're pouring into the next generation of teachers. So please enjoy it. You know, they're getting something from you, but we know that there's reciprocity in all of this. You're going to be getting something from them as well. Maybe just, you know, another sort of reason for why you came on to the best profession on the planet. And then number 7, save the dates. While we don't have any meetings scheduled for you all year, we will have a couple of learning community events that we would like for you to attend. For example, we're going to have an event in February called We Love Our Mentors. We've had it the last few years, and we love doing that to celebrate all of you. And also remember that we have these implementation meetings every month starting in September, and those are from 3:30 to 4:30. So if you're available, please drop in. But again, they're not mandatory. If you just want to know what's happening with the program, this is an opportunity to come and learn and grow with us. All right, that's all I have, Ms. Cassidy. It's 5:03. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining and sticking with us through this hour and 3 minutes. We just really appreciate all that you're doing and the support that you are going to be providing to our residents throughout this year. We will be sending out communications next week, as Dr. Hill Jackson said, probably by next Friday, with the instructions for getting started on PMP. But I will gather up all of the action items here so that you have that and sent over to all of you as well. If at any point in time you have questions, of course, please see your points of contact, but the term team is here to support you as you support our residents. If there are any questions right now that we can answer for you, we'll hang on the line for a few minutes. But other than that, Dr. L. Jackson, if you can't think of anything else, then I think we're good to go.